opinions shared or not allowed are highly personal to individuals, and some incidents may be triggering for listeners. We are an inclusive space for dialogue and support, but not a replacement for professional therapy.
Imagine not knowing what it feels like to ever leave your house. Okay, just as an example, let's use it as a metaphor. Imagine that you've lived in a house and you feel like the whole universe is just this house and there's nothing outside it. Are you going to sit in your house and imagine a playground? No. Are you going to sit in your house and imagine that one day I'll sit in an aeroplane? When you don't know all of this exists, you think that there is only your house and this is the whole universe. That's it. Nothing else outside this house exists. How are you going to be able to think about an aeroplane or a playground or a swing set or any of these things? That's the same thing for somebody who is living in an environment where there is no freedom and no access.
इतना लेट नहीं चलेगा
30 and unmarried.
बैकलेस टॉप
अब्बा नहीं मानेंगे।
क्यों नहीं चाहिए बच्चे?
लोग क्या कहेंगे सोलो ट्रिप हस्बैंड के साथ जाना
What do I do? Arey, just be not allowed.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Not Aloud podcast. I'm your host Abe. We understand that the episodes pop a lot of thoughts and questions in our minds. So here's our Get Aloud edition, where we freely discuss it all with mental health professionals and other experts, as understanding impact is always a step towards finding possible solutions. So let's start and get aloud. Hi everyone, we are back with our mental health section with our therapist here, Jasdeep Mago. Hi Jasdeep, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
So yeah, as you heard, we spoke to Muskan and Sulekha, and we had a lot of stories, lots of incidents that were shared, a lot of heavy personal things that we spoke of. So right off the top, I think Jasdeep, I'd want to know, what do you think should one do if you feel completely overwhelmed with a lot of heavy things in your life? What are some small things that you can do in order to calm yourself?
I think the terms that are used here, overwhelmed or feeling heavy, are slightly vague. But overall, to give you a gist of, when you are feeling overwhelmed with life in general, when you have a lot of emotions that you're dealing with, those emotions can be anxiety, they can be guilt, they can be pressure, they can be all of them combined, maybe. And when you are feeling these things, I think one of the most important things, and I can't stress this enough, is finding a support system. There is a lot that you can go through and get through once you do have a support system with you. And when I say support system, I don't necessarily mean your parents or your siblings. It could be your friends, it could be colleagues, it could be your boss, it could be a neighbor, it could be a professional, it could be a support group. And that sense of just being able to talk about and having a space to feel safe to talk about anything can really be very liberating. And not to say that there aren't other ways to help yourself. However, this would create the most conducive environment for you to even be able to help yourself. When we don't have support externally, when we don't have a sense of belonging, or we don't feel cared for, loved, understood, all of these things, it can make us feel like we don't deserve to feel better, to an extent. And when we do receive that support or that level of understanding from someone outside of us, that can reinstill the feeling that I deserve to feel better and therefore I'm going to help myself. And then you have a higher level of motivation to be able to give yourself a boost and put into place the remedies that you require. And coming to those, coming to talking about what can you do to really help yourself when you're feeling these overwhelming emotions. I think first things first is don't deny those emotions. Don't run away from them. I feel like a lot of us, and we are all guilty of doing this, we do, want to run away from the difficult things, the difficult feelings, because they're so uncomfortable. So, and I think that creates more issues in terms of long term recovery, because for now you may feel like I'm not paying attention to it and it's okay. Eventually, it will come out in some way or the other, because suppression is not a long term solution.
And even like the whole thing of the toxic positivity that goes around, that people keep saying, why are you taking this in a negative way? Why are you thinking that this is something that is not this is a challenge in your life? Look at it as something that is going to help you grow. Look at everything in a positive way, and there is a limit to trying to see things in a different light, and understanding and recognizing, acknowledging that something is not serving you in a positive way. So yeah, I think that is very important, to not deny what you're going through or what's happening to you, and not downplaying it to yourself. There already might be so many out there in the world who might say that, who don't know what it is like. They've never been in your shoes. So for them, it's easier to say that just let it go, just be positive, do whatever. But you know how difficult it is and what you go through when all of this happens. So yeah, it's very, very important to at least be your own support in that place where you don't become some alien who does not recognize what you're going through.
Absolutely. And toxic positivity is genuinely one of the biggest issues that most Indian households face, I would say, is because our parents, our grandparents, even, um, it's so naturally just said all the time, right? Like, be strong, think positive.
If we have done it, you can do it. We've seen
Yeah,
it all. There's nothing new.
exactly. This just happened a few days ago with Kapil Dev talking about how school was so tough for them, and we don't know what pressure is, and that's toxic in so many ways. Yes, you're trying to encourage people today. You're trying to encourage the students, the new cricketers, all of that. It's not encouraging to hear that you have it easy and you're still whining about it. It's not encouraging to hear that you don't know what pressure is. None of that is encouraging. None of that feels good. You're invalidating somebody else's emotions, and that is not your place. It's nobody's place to do. It's nobody's place to invalidate somebody else's emotion.
And that's such a strong, I think, validation to hear that, there's no one's allowed to tell you what you're supposed to feel after going through something. Like it's 100% you're right if you feel shattered or you feel tensed about something.
Absolutely.
Coming to one of the incidents that was spoken to the episodes, when all of us spoke of, the incident of thinking of, you're wearing something that is not allowed, or it's not appropriate, and then you get into a crash or an accident, and then your family comes and looks at you. Your first thought is not, am I going to be safe? Am I going to be okay out of whatever happened? It's more of, oh no, these people caught me wearing a skirt or whatever that is. And that was such like a universal thing that I don't know why so many people relate to. Why is it that a lot of people think that I'd rather be unsafe or rather die than my family discovering that I wore something or I did something which is inappropriate according to them? And this kind of a fear that constantly just stays in some corner of your mind. What kind of impact can something like that have on someone's mind? And what do we do about that?
I think the impact it has is so evident in what you just said, that they don't care about their own safety, because safety for them doesn't mean their health, but means what their parents think of them. Safety for the meaning of safety has changed here for these individuals who have suffered through this kind of trauma. And it becomes so deep rooted that even at a point of crisis where their health and physical health is at harm, their biggest concern is, what will my parents think of me? Because that thought process of that individual's parents has created a constant sense of fear, which I'm sure has resulted in so many things in the past. You don't feel fear for no reason. You feel fear towards something that is creating harm towards you. That harm doesn't have to be physical violence, sexual abuse. Harm is emotional and mental abuse as well. And
Yeah.
if this individual has been creating that kind of emotional and mental trauma for you on repeated occasions, then that is that's the place where that's what's creating the feeling of fear, right? And fear comes when there is no safety, when there is no security. So the meaning of safety and security has been totally changed for these individuals, and that can have such a large ripple effect. If you look at adults who have to live their life in this pretext that I am a byproduct of what my parents think of me, and that is the most important factor in my whole life. Not because I'm worried about their opinion, but because their opinion has such large repercussions on my daily life. I don't think they're right. I don't want to comply, but I don't have a choice. If I don't comply, the repercussions, the consequences outweigh everything else. They outweigh my own health. They outweigh my own life. That is how much they outweigh everything. That's how large those consequences feel to you, because it's not been done once. This is an everyday thing that people have to deal with. The pressure of living under that somebody else's perception of right and wrong and what that comes with. Not to say that, and I do want to clarify this for, in case parents are hearing this podcast, I do want to clarify that I don't mean that parents they're not allowed to have an opinion about their children. I'm not saying that, suddenly you should not think anything about them. But there's a difference between having an opinion and forcing your opinion and not giving a choice. And what kind of way you're choosing to force that opinion. There are loads of ways that you can do this. I mean, one we saw in this podcast was, sending a private detective behind your own daughter. Is you finding a way to force your opinion onto her, because if she doesn't comply, the repercussions are unimaginable at this point, because anything can happen. And it's even hard for her to understand what's going to happen next once they find out. I think that living under that kind of fear creates series of trust issues amongst people. It makes it very difficult to create lasting relationships as adults, because our first impression of what a relationship is supposed to be. And when I say relationship, I don't mean romantic. I mean all types of relationships.
Yeah.
Like friendships, colleagues, work, anything, including romantic relationships. It's your first entry in your family, is your first entry into society. So it is the first learning you have of what the outside world looks like. And if this is your experience of that, where there is no trust, there is no freedom, there is constantly berating, insulting, putting somebody down for their choices, you're going to go out into the real world and expect that everyone will treat you like this. And that can create a lot of trust issues. It can create a lot of self-worth issues, more than trust issues even. It's like, I know that nobody is going to accept me. Nobody is going to love me for my choices of, for example, wearing a skirt. And of course, I'm not saying you cannot get over these things. Of course, you can. Of course, there's ways to do that. However, I think parents don't realize that it can take decades for people to get past these kind of deep rooted self-worth and trust issues that they have with the outside world.
And I think also at a point for people where it's not limited to just thought, then what will they think? For some people, it's gone beyond that. It's okay if I'm not perceived to be a extremely nice and obedient or whatever adjective person there is, but I have extreme consequences like Muskan did, the way of being dragged back home. And
Yeah.
there can be much worse than that. I know this is not something small, but there's much worse things that have happened to people because they tried to set their boundaries. They tried to see what can happen.
They try to taste freedom.
Yeah. And just because you tried, you are put like 100 steps back. And just that fear is not something you're that also we spoke of in the episode, where a lot of people who are not familiar with a situation like this, they might very much go around and say that what's the worst that can happen to you? It's all just in your head. This is not how reality functions. Everyone has issues. But that's what Muskan's friend said as well, that he did not believe her when he said that there can be extreme things. Only after seeing her go through it does he now finally come to believe that something like this can exist. And I mean, there are people who have lost people because of things like this. So it's very much real. I don't remember to what age, but I started to realize that I couldn't see. It was unclear vision. But I was told as a child that you dare not say things like this because wearing glasses is all ugly.
Mm-hmm.
Since that age till I got like my second, third job, I was just figuring the world by just, you know, some kind of abrupt measurements. I really didn't know where I'm walking into, what am I doing. I have been so fearful of boarding the wrong flight, or there have been people who have seen me and I have not seen them, and they think I'm avoiding them. I don't want to talk to them, and many such things. I can't even begin to list down the incidents that have happened with me, to even to the extent that people thought that I was too cool to go and get checked up. I didn't want to do any of this. And I was shamed, I was made fun of, I was ridiculed. Many such things have happened. But they have no idea that all of this doesn't stem from me trying to be too cool, or me not caring, or me not wanting to listen to their advice. I have tried to speak about this at home as well, and it didn't go down well. So somewhere I just told myself, okay, I gotta deal with it like it never happened. I just said, no, I thought maybe something like this is there, but I'm okay. I can see I'm fine. Until date, they have no idea.
Oh
So
my God.
it's, I think, one of biggest things that I could do for myself, something that I could give myself as an adult, was just the assurance to see.
My God.
People think that once you get a job, you will, buy a car, go on a crazy, huge international trip, whatever, buy luxury bags, something. But for me, I think one of the biggest things was that, and it came from a place of no one believed me as a child. I was not allowed to even talk about this. And the fear is still so real. It's still in my head that this is not acceptable, and I am not making things up. The view that they had back then, it is still the same now.
And I'm 100% sure that you tried to communicate this in a million ways to them.
I did, and it really didn't go down well. I That's what I know, that when people say that you didn't try, why can't you just talk? Why can't you just leave?
It's always victim blaming.
Yeah, and in your head, you know how real it is. You're not making up scenarios or anything as such, which they have no idea of. So it really takes immense courage to first of all recognize that okay, something like this has happened to me, and I will figure a way out of this.
Hmm.
And just to even mentally,
Hmm.
just tell yourself mentally that okay, I'll figure out the first step somehow.
Hmm.
To say that okay, I'll somehow suffer through this, that is not easy. But also to make up your mind and feel okay, I will take one step at a time
Hmm.
against this, that also is not easy. But to do that also, it takes a lot of strength, which sometimes it comes with its own pace, with its own time, with how and well you feel secure.
Yeah.
Maybe it's getting a job, maybe it is finding someone who understands you, who
Mm-hmm.
validates what you have gone through.
Yeah.
uh, that I mean, all those things were a factor for me,
Mm-hmm.
why I was able to help myself. So yeah, like you mentioned, to get a support system for yourself, whoever that might be, to support yourself in ways which is it money, is it a space where you can talk about this, is it access to things like this. I mean,
Mm.
for me, okay, it was a doctor. Doctors are everywhere. It
Mm.
can be other things as well, which is not extremely accessible. So even if you have support and money, sometimes it's not that easy to get to where you want to go.
Mm. I just want to add here that, I think a lot of people forget or don't realize. This is also where this comes from. When you said that people would tell you that, why can't you just like say no? Or why can't you just do it yourself? Why can't you leave? A lot of people say these things, and I do want to like give a message out there to like explaining why it's so hard to do that, because I don't think people understand it, and I think they're coming from a point of ignorance. And just to clarify that for people, imagine not knowing what it feels like to ever leave your house. Okay, just as an example, let's use it as a metaphor. Imagine that you've lived in a house and you feel like the whole universe is just this house and there's nothing outside it. Are you going to sit in your house and imagine a playground? No. Are you going to sit in your house and imagine that, oh, one day I'll sit in an aeroplane? When you don't know all of this exists, you think that there is only your house and this is the whole universe. That's it. Nothing else outside this house exists. How are you going to be able to think about an aeroplane or a playground or a swing set or any of these things? That's the same thing for somebody who is living in an environment where there is no freedom and no access. The thought of even taking freedom or taking control is so alien that it's almost impossible. It's like thinking about, and it's literally feels like wishful thinking, like I'm making this up. Like it is not even real for
Yeah,
me to ask my parents, or not forget ask, it's not even real for me to think that I can go to the eye doctor on my own. Like that is a thought that will never come to you. Just like if you've never seen an aeroplane, you're never going to think about, I'm going to one day go by aeroplane, right? Like it's the same thing.
yeah,
So I think that's what people need to understand, is that when you grow up in an environment like this, even the access in your thought doesn't exist, like let alone in reality. Even in your thought process, that access doesn't exist. One day you're going to just wake up and be like, I'm going to revolt against my parents and just walk out of the house. You don't know that. You don't know how to do that. You don't know that that's an option also sometimes.
and the worst part is, even if you reached a point in your life where you felt okay, I understand that this is an option that I have, and you tried to go for it and something really bad happened, and you were reminded that you have boundaries and you have rules and restrictions to stay within, and you dare not step outside that, otherwise you have crazy repercussions that can be as small as just being reprimanded, or something as bad as being locked inside, or just being killed. Like, yeah, that can be as bad as that. So
Yeah.
you tell yourself that, okay, that option is not for me. It can be for others, but in absolutely no way is it that I get to be that, I get to do that. That is a life that can also be mine. So it's even difficult if you tried and you keep getting pulled back, to tell yourself that, from where do I bring that energy? From where do I bring that belief that I can somehow figure this out, even if time and again I am pulled back?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it is very difficult is an understatement. And for me to even talk about it some is difficult. Like, I think you are just the third or fourth person in this entire world who knows about this. Like, apart from like
Wow.
one or two people I know and the doctor. I think people who know me will know through this podcast now. And I've not even had the strength or the belief to talk about it and not get shouted back at.
Hmm.
Also, this point of how people think that the way relations are seen in our society, that it's okay if you have to go through things, you have to put up with things, because at the end of the day they are
Hmm.
family. End of the day,
Yeah.
they raised you, they gave you something, so it's somewhat your duty to put up with what they also expect of you. But that expectation can be something which is only harmful for you. It does not serve you in any way, and grow, and later on in life it can be so detrimental that you can't help them also. If you get to a
Yeah.
stage where you're that down and that so sad and not hopeful about anything, so it does not serve anyone, including you and the people, the very people that you think that you are doing a favor for. I think one very big topic that I would like to address is, while you're going through such things, it can also be a point where you feel very guilty
Hmm.
to get out of this, because you feel, okay, maybe it's not just you who's going through this, maybe there are others around you who are suffering along with you. Many such cases where people have dependents in their family, and by dependence I don't mean just financially, it can be financially, it can be emotionally.
Yeah.
In many such ways, it's like you are a pillar there who's somehow making a lot of things work, who is stopping a lot of negativity, a lot of abuse. But you also reach a stage where you feel that it's too much for you. It's like you are this
Hmm.
manager who has to figure everything, but it's way too much load. Now, in such a situation, for you to think, I would really want to get out of this, but if I do this, I'm abandoning a
Hmm.
lot of people, a lot of responsibilities that I have. That definitely eats up a lot of people, and serves as that reminder that, okay, even if I get the strength, I get the access, all of that,
Hmm.
this is one big final obstacle that like somehow stops people from giving it their all.
Hmm.
What do you think should be done in this case? How do you deal with it, get out of it? Is this normal? What are your thoughts?
So definitely, it is extremely normal to have these feelings. I also know people who have been in therapy with me for a long amount of time, who have had similar experiences with their parents. I also know people who don't just feel guilt for abandoning somebody that is dependent on them, but they also feel guilt for abandoning the people who have been traumatizing them their whole life. Like, it's like, these are my parents, how can I abandon them? So I do understand where that guilt is coming from. And I do think it's extremely valid, because your whole life, like, we come back to that, right? Your whole life you've been told that you are not important. Your thoughts, your feelings, your wants, your needs, your opinions, none of that is important. And suddenly, when you do take charge and give yourself some importance to be like, my mental health is important, my physical health is important, and I need, my boundaries are important, my space is important, my dreams are important. When you start doing that, obviously there's going to be resistance, because you've never had anybody validate that for you. growing up. So it feels alien, it feels unnatural that that suddenly now you feel like I'm important enough to be able to stand up for myself or to ask for my rights or to want different things, even, or to want anything, you know. And that guilt is a very natural feeling you're having. But I think what's really, really key over here is know that that guilt is a conditioned response. We all are conditioned to believe certain things growing up. And this is a conditioning that if you don't, or if you do think about yourself, that's bad. Why do we feel guilt? Let's think about that. We feel guilt when we do something wrong. And that wrong, now the word wrong is so subjective, right? What is wrong for you may not be wrong for me. Some things are universally wrong, but not everything is universally wrong. Somebody's parents wearing a skirt is wrong, and for somebody else, marrying outside religion is wrong. So wrong is a very subjective word. But for me, if I grew up thinking that all of these things are wrong, then automatically I am going to obviously feel guilt when I'm doing those things. If I'm taking space for myself, if I am, setting a boundary, obviously it's going to feel wrong. And that's a conditioned response, though. And when we learn to undo that, when we learn to uncondition ourselves from these strong conditionings that we have from childhood, is when the process really begins of taking up space, trying to gain access, trying to help yourself, starting to feel worthy of the help that you're receiving. I mean, that's a really long process. First of all, it doesn't happen overnight. It's not something you wake up one day and are like, I deserve this and I'm going to do this. It's not a dharma movie where this is like, one day you've just like figured it out.
No, I feel that myself because I have also tried. I have tried to move out. I was not allowed. I have. It's a thing that people say, no, get a job, just go. I have tried to do that as well. It does not work. Even right now, I'm at a stage in my life where I feel a lot of pressure to move out because every day I feel that I'm sinking here, I'm drowning here, and if I don't move out, I will not flourish. I will not grow. A lot of other things are dependent on me moving. And it's very, very pressurizing. If I don't move, my life might not go the way that I really wanted to go. But if I do that, if things go wrong here to an extent where I can't repair it, there is no me being here and trying to control it, stop it, or undo something very bad. Will I be able to forgive myself? Can I live with that feeling of I abandoned something and things went wrong, and because I wasn't there, everything just shattered? Even if I get my freedom and happiness and all of that, would I, as an individual, be okay to live with that? Is a very big thing that I'm sure is not just me, it's a very universally relatable emotion that many people have, that you being responsible for something back at home or wherever, that really eats me up. And both are very important to me. I want a better life. I want a lot of things that I've been working so hard for, that I've been dreaming for, that I see so many others get access to so easily. Why can't I just have something so simple? I'm not saying, I'm not dreaming of being the richest person in the world or the most uh, well uh, maintained body and figure and be famous. No, I'm not asking for any of this. I'm just asking for a life where I don't feel like getting up daily and feeling like I don't want this life. I don't want to deal with people who are constantly putting me down, pulling me back. Why can't I have that? But this is what stops you. If at all by any chance you leave, something very huge might crumble, which can't be repaired. And if you don't take a step, your future might crumble. And it's a very like a big, I think, dilemma that you don't know what to do about. What would you say for that?
I think every decision in our life is a trade-off. And the earlier we realize this in life, the better it is for all of us. That when you choose one thing, you're letting go of something else. And that's every single decision in our life. When we choose to wake up in the morning to go to the gym, we're letting go of sleep. When we choose to sleep, we're letting go of our fitness. Everything in life is a trade off. Every decision you make for yourself, for your family, for your loved ones, whatever that decision is, you're trading off between my happiness versus their happiness. If you're lucky, you're in a household where both your happiness lies in the same place. But not everyone has that luxury. So sometimes it's between choosing what will make me happy versus what will make my family happy. And there comes a time in life, when you realize that I cannot make anybody happy unless I'm happy. And when we realize that the trade-off or the cost benefit in this scenario is only cost and cost and cost and cost, and there is no benefit, is when we can see this objectively and less emotionally. When we see it objectively, it makes sense to first pour water into your own cup, right? But that emotionally to be able to do that is so difficult. I think that it's a journey for people to come to a place where they emotionally detach themselves from the conditioning that they were brought up with. When you emotionally detach yourself and start to uncondition those smaller everyday nuances that you grew up with, that's when you truly start to look at it from a bird's eye view, from a bigger picture perspective. And the bigger picture is that if I don't take care of myself, I'm never going to be able to take care of anybody. And I know somebody who quite recently actually was able to get out of this toxic environment that they grew up in and allow herself to be married. And it took a lot for her to be able to do that. And she knew that getting married and leaving that house meant that she's leaving her mother in the abusive household, which was something that she was unwilling to do.
Yeah.
And for her to be able to, she was her guardian in that house. She's like, without me, my mother will get beaten up every day.
I relate to that. Yeah.
So if for her, she was like, if I get married, I'm either choosing my happiness and my future and my all of this. And if I don't get married, then I'm going to be in this house and be as miserable as her. And over time, I'm going to resent her, not my abusive father. I'm going to start resenting my mother because I had a chance to leave and I didn't leave because I chose to take care of you and not take care of my future. And over time, now even we don't have a relationship. I don't have a future and I'm not adding value anywhere. Whereas now she got to a point where she emotionally detached herself from this whole thing and had a lot of support to be able to do that. And is in a place where now she's married and she's able to provide a lot more access to her mother. She's able to provide a lot more support to her because she's in a better place and she's able to provide happiness because she feels it. If I don't possess happiness, if I don't know what it feels like, how am I going to be able to give it to somebody else? If I don't possess freedom, how am I supposed to give it to somebody else? And now she's able to do that because she was able to take her mother out of that house and send her to Canada and take her to Canada with her, which is something that she would have never imagined doing, being in that house. And that pretty much started snowballing as an effect, in the family, when that was seen as something that, as a possibility, that if I feel joy, I can provide joy. And I think that realization, of course, took a long, long, long time. But eventually she did come to realize that I can only give what I am. And if I am miserable, I will only give misery.
Wow. And I think also to the thought of maybe as a child, whenever earlier in life, she would have wished that this is what her mom did, that took her away from the
Yes.
situation and kept hoping, wishing that someday this would happen, but it never did. And if she also chose to not leave, then, like you said, towards the end, it would have become that you didn't take me away. You didn't prevent from all of this happening to me. And I'm still here because of you.
Hmm.
Why didn't you choose a better life for yourself and for me?
Hmm.
That definitely would have come in at some point. But now that she did what she was hoping for all her life, probably, maybe her mom also went to the same thought that there is no such thing as stepping out of a marriage. And maybe now, I don't know if she has stepped out of a marriage, but even to the fact of knowing that, okay, I can stay with my daughter, I can visit my daughter, whatever, that is feel better in that situation where your daughter did something you probably wanted to but never felt was the right thing to do. That also might come in as some kind of solace after going through so much in life. But yeah, to get to that, it's a very hard path. Probably after she got married and she left, there might have been a lot of incidents which made her think that this was
Yeah.
a wrong decision. That she has cried many days that I'm selfish and I did not do the right thing.
Yeah.
But maybe, okay, if right now the outcome for her is good, so maybe she can see that this was the right step to finally go and figure it out for herself. Yeah, I know there can be a situation where it might not be that happy, where there can be situations where your marriage is worse than the house that you have grown up in. Maybe that's
Yeah.
a whole other scenario where you think of, okay, if this is not okay, I'm allowed to leave from here as well. I left something that I thought was not okay. I've gotten into something which is worse than that, and I'm allowed to leave
Hmm.
without having a lot of responsibilities on myself.
And you're absolutely right. It is a very, very high possibility that someone who was raised in a toxic household is now married into another toxic household. And the high possibility is there because it's like we said, it's your concept of what love and a family
Mm.
looks like. Now suddenly you can't. I mean, nothing happens suddenly, but over time, seeing other people's families, seeing other people how and seeing other marriages, seeing other households does help add perspective, does help understand, okay, this is what, it should look like, or it could look like, even if it shouldn't, but it could look like this, it could feel like this. What actually the real work, the real hard work has to be undoing your pattern, because your pattern is still being attracted to that toxicity. It's possible, right? A lot
Hmm.
of people who have abusive fathers are attracted to abusive men because they think love looks like that. They think this is what love is supposed to look like and feel like. It's supposed to be this back and forth, this tug of war all the time. It's supposed to be, feeling extremely insecure about somebody, or it's supposed to be this excessive possessiveness and this excessive controlling.
Yeah, look at all the fans of Arjun Reddy or Kabir Singh. I mean, you
Yeah.
see how such things are also normalized in media, which is highly, highly problematic.
And it's seen as romantic, right?
I mean, I was cringe max. It was a huge trigger for me, and that's what only people who've gone through that can recognize. That, you know what, this is absolute rubbish. This just is not how it should be. I've had women argue with me that this is something that they'd want. They've never
Mm,
seen this kind of someone who's so possessive and so wants to rule over them.
yeah,
Is a sound. Yeah, but that whole thing of, okay, this is the kind of man I want, this is the kind of relationship I want, where I'm the center of attraction, where it's just how I am seen as something to be acquired. Yeah, all such things, like a lot of such influences also play in your head.
absolutely.
And it's very, very, and if you've grown up with that, you feel this is normal. If it happens with others, might happen with me, and actually, this is something I really like. Very difficult to first even know that, okay, this is not fine.
Exactly. I think that is the most important part because I, and these are not my clients, they're not my patients, but like I can see this in my friends. I mean, sadly for me, I am in a space where I can't help my observation sometimes. I can detach from my observation, but I've still made the observation. Whether I want to act on it or not is my decision. Now, when I see, people like these are not people who are coming to me for help, they're just my friends. And I see them, going through this pattern and I see how their parents treat them. I totally and wholly understand that this is a toxic pattern of, what their concept of love means. And they have zero idea. That's what is the most baffling part to me is that how do you not know or how have you not given this a single thought, even though you've been in abusive relationship after abusive after abusive, and it's a series of them, and you've still not paused to think about the fact that why am I putting myself in this place repeatedly? And I really urge people to do this, whoever is listening, I would say that give yourself the opportunity to reflect on your own patterns. Why do you constantly find yourself in the same place, or why do you constantly find yourself in that same loop, at same habit? Is because of a reason. To give yourself the chance to think about that.
Yeah, it's recognizing why you do what you do is very important for you to figure you don't do things which don't serve you, and only to adopt things which might be uncomfortable or hard, but is very much required for you to lead a much better, happier life. It's the process, and yeah, it requires support, therapy, relaxation, non-toxic household, work life, relations, everything. It's a big, big task. One day at a time, one step at a time. That's what we're trying to do through this as well, especially for people who don't have this kind of representation. It's some kind of a myth that there's a lot of freedom around these days, and like most people, even if you're uh, coming from not such a great background in terms of money or privilege, they feel, oh no, things have changed. It's not that regressive these days. It's all just back in the old days. But that's not how it works. I mean, I'm from Mumbai, and I just do not relate to being the Mumbai girl with all the freedom in this world. So if it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone in this world. So yeah, I think with that we have covered a lot of topics. Thank you so much, Jasdeep, for coming today on our show. This has been such an insightful conversation. I almost feel like I got casual therapy. That was so nice and enlightening in some way. If people do want to reach out to you, where would you want them to get in touch with you?
So you can reach out to me. I have two Instagram pages. One is my company account and one is my personal account. You can reach out on either. One is Invisible Illness India and the other is Jasdeep Mago. And yeah, I'm pretty accessible on Instagram. I reply to whoever messages me. So I'd be happy to if anyone's reaching out.
Yeah, I reached out to Jasdeep and she has replied to her emails within like I think an hour or less than that. So I assure you all that she's very much accessible. So yeah, thank you so much for coming to the show. I'm so glad we could have such an open, insightful conversation for all you out there.
Thank you for having these conversations. It really makes a huge difference.
I hope so. I really hope. To all our listeners, if you have any Not Aloud stories to share, and for all future episode updates, please follow Not Aloud on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Our episodes are available on Spotify, Google and Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and other streaming apps. Also, if you want to share your thoughts or send in questions for our experts, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Abe. See you next time.